Most of us are Democrats, and then what I think is wrong with a lot of Democrats now, because they seem to have forgotten why we're Democrats. So why are we Democrats? We believe that we can, as a society, thrive and demonstrate compassion and caring for the less fortunate. We believe that we can provide for the common health, safety, and welfare, including the provision of essential health care services for everyone and the protection of our air, water, and life-giving atmosphere. We believe that we should do our patriotic duty by paying our fair share for our nation's defense, infrastructure, and programs that enhance our quality of life and that reflect the very best of who we are as a civilized, compassionate people. Republicans speak of tax relief, as if taxes are an evil from which we should be relieved. Democrats speak of taxes as dues for living in a nation that provides so much of value to each of us. We know that taxes are investments in the future, and we believe that those who have benefited the most from the prior investments through taxes of those who preceded us should pay their fair share. The Reagan-Bush Republicans favor giving huge tax breaks to the wealthy while making things even more difficult for the underprivileged, and while driving our nation into irresponsible, historic deficits and accumulated debt. Republicans, we know now, are not fiscal conservatives. And when is the last time we heard a Republican call themselves a fiscal conservative? We know now, after the Republican and Bush years, that Republicans are the most reckless spenders our country has ever known. And they seek in the process to destroy the programs that help the needy the most. Imagine how upset the wealthiest Americans would be to continue the disastrous illegal occupation of Iraq if we were responsibly pursuing an economic policy of pay as we go. Instead, we're loading on to later generations the enormous debt that grows as we spend over $2 billion each week. It's going to be a total of about $1.5 trillion on this disastrous, tragic misadventure in Iraq. And at the same time, they're handing out enormous tax breaks to the wealthiest. We Democrats believe in a strong defense while also supporting international legal obligations, such as the Nuremberg Covenant and the UN Charter, which prohibit wars of aggression, attacks against other nations, unless done in self-defense. Contrary to the Republicans and the extremist neocons with their plan for the new American century, we do not believe in any nation dominating other nations and thereby inflicting untold death, destruction, and misery upon millions of people. We Democrats believe in the rule of law, that no one, including our president, is above the law. We also believe that the president must be limited in his or her powers as the Constitution commands, and that the Congress and the courts, as co-equal branches of our government, have not only the power but the responsibility to rein in a president who abuses the executive power, who breaches his trust with the American people, who violates the Constitution, and who leads our nation through deceit into an illegal and disastrous invasion and occupation of a country that posed no threat of danger to the United States. We Democrats abhor human rights violations, including the kidnapping and torture of human beings. Unprecedented in the history of our nation, President Bush and his administration have approved as a matter of official policy for the first time ever in our nation's history these egregious human rights violations, which make us all far less safe and which deprive us of the moral standing the United States has always enjoyed, as we have always, up until now, prohibited torture, even as applied to those who have fought for our enemies. In the most hypocritical ways, the Republicans wear their religion on their sleeves, as we've seen so dramatically in the last 24 hours, while ignoring the most fundamental religious values of compassion, helping the poor, preserving our earth and life-giving atmosphere, and making peace instead of war. The greed of the Halliburtons and Enrons have come to symbolize the Republican Party, while the legions of the uninsured and children living in poverty continue to grow by millions every year a Republican is in the White House. Now, I've talked up until now about our values as Democrats, but sadly, many of the Democrats in Congress, if not most now, have seemed to lose the sense of why they are Democrats. The only discussion about health care reform among most Democrats, including with Hillary Clinton, is about preserving and expanding the insurance companies that unnecessarily suck out billions of dollars each year that otherwise would be available for the provision of health care. Most of the Democrats in Congress have supported our nation's invasion and occupation of Iraq. Some, like presidential candidates Hillary Clinton and John Edwards, voted to give President Bush a blank check to make war against Iraq without even bothering to read the National Intelligence Estimate that, had they read the document, would have informed them that the intelligence community was vastly at odds about what the president was telling us and telling Congress. That, in fact, the intelligence agency within the State Department, the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, was saying that these bogus claims about Saddam Hussein trying to buy uranium from Niger were, in the words of that intelligence agency, highly dubious. And according to that intelligence agency, as well as the State Department, there was nothing to these claims that those aluminum tubes were going to be used to build up a nuclear capability in Iraq. That is what was in the National Intelligence Estimate of October 2002. It was made available to all members of the United States Senate. John Edwards and Hillary Clinton did not even bother to read that National Intelligence Estimate and proceeded to give this president a blank check to invade and illegally occupy Iraq. Let's tell the truth as long as we're entering into this presidential election, because in many of these areas there's not a hell of a lot of difference between the Republicans and the Democrats. Many of the Democrats in Congress have supported continued funding for the Iraq disaster, even after they finally figured out that the justifications by the Bush administration for the invasion and occupation of Iraq were a complete fraud. Even after receiving a mandate from the American people, this is what absolutely blows me away, after the American people voted to give the Democrats a majority of the seats in Congress, The Democrats have enabled the Bush administration in its unconstitutional and outrageous invasions of our privacy by legalizing the warrantless wiretapping of communications in which United States citizens participate. This has been a shameful episode of timidity and absence of principle, all with the result of allowing blatant incursions on our privacy and the civil liberties that have until now set us apart from human rights abusing tyrannies around the world. Well, they say all politics is local, so I'm going to bring it down to local. And let's tell the truth about what's happening. We have a so-called Democratic Congressman, Jim Matheson. He votes like a white right-wing extremist. He's so bad that the nation referred to him as a Bush Democrat. That ought to be an oxymoron, but unfortunately it no longer seems to be. Consider just a few of the examples. Jim Matheson was the critical swing vote. You don't get to be a swing vote in the United States House of Representatives very often, but he was the critical swing vote in approving CAFTA. He voted for the outrageous House immigration bill that would turn 12 to 14 million people in this country, most of them hardworking and otherwise law-abiding people, helping bolster our economy. He would turn them into felons and require their deportation. He supports the marriage amendment, the first ever amendment to the United States Constitution that calls for discrimination and against an entire class of people. He voted to deprive people of their full remedies for damages against those who have harmed them and has the nerve to call it tort reform. He rushed back to Washington, D.C. How many people know this? That Jim Matheson was among those who rushed back to D.C. with the right-wing nuts to keep brain-dead Terry Chiavo alive. He supported a bill that would deprive federal courts from considering the constitutionality of the Pledge of Allegiance, and he supported the invasion and continued occupation of Iraq and voted to eliminate the right of habeas corpus for those detained as enemy combatants. His obvious, cynical, cowardly political calculation has been, from the time he was elected, that the Democratic base will have nowhere else to go at election time, so all he needs to do to win the vote is to please the Republicans, who will guarantee him victory at the polls. He takes every single one of us for granted when he does this, telling us that we have nowhere else to go, so all he has to do is worry about pleasing the Republicans. That's why he wins elections, not by providing leadership, not by helping to solve our nation's problems, and not by taking a principled stance. He has been a total sellout, pure and simple, and our nation, and of course all of us, are thereby disturbed by yet another political prostitute. And if you want to know how I really feel about it, we can talk about it later. But I used to think that Jim Matheson was an anomaly, of which we have many in Utah. But now he seems to have set an example for the pitiful Democratic Party nationwide. Now we have Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, declaring at a time of the worst excesses by any president in our nation's history that the constitutional remedy of impeachment, the only real remedy against a president who the courts and Congress seem unable or unwilling to constrain, is, in her words, off the table. And we hear Barack Obama pathetically say, and this is his quote, he said, "I think it's very important for us not to get into the habit as a political culture that we impeach every president. It's supposed to be a rare occurrence, and I think it'd be an enormous political distraction. Those were Barack Obama's words. As if impeachment is not more appropriate now than at any time in our nation's history, and as if the constitutional remedy of impeachment, which our founders felt very strongly about in including in our Constitution, is not a crucial means of preventing the assertion of dangerous dictatorial power as we have seen under the Bush administration. My response to Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi regarding impeachment is, if impeachment is not appropriate now, then when in the world would it ever be appropriate? Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and John Edwards have refused to promise to withdraw United States troops from Iraq even by the year 2013 if they are elected, basically saying that they will stay the course. Well, have you read Lee Iacocca's book, Where Have All the Leaders Gone? Where Lee Iacocca exclaims, "Stay the course? This is the United States, not the damn Titanic." So yes, Lee Iacocca, where have all the leaders gone? Where are the statesmen? Where are the men and women of principle? Can any of us point to any political or religious figures or even artists who the American people have looked to these past disastrous 7 years as providing compelling opposition to the insanity that has passed for federal public policy? There is little question that a failure of leadership is exactly why Congress's approval ratings of 29% are lower even than the President Bush's approval ratings at the lowest level that we have seen even at the time that Richard Nixon was facing impeachment. So, friends, we all need to demand better, and we need to be damn tenacious about it. We have a right to say that to the Democrats in Congress and to the Democratic Party in general and to the Democratic Party in this state, don't ever think you can take us for granted. If you don't provide effective leadership, then we will not support you. We should all have a moral breaking point beyond which we will not support a candidate even if he or she claims the Democratic mantle. Let us even consider a national pledge campaign, pursuant to which we will obtain hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pledges, that none of us will support a Democrat, including the presidential candidate next year, if they fail to provide the needed leadership, if they do not pledge to stop the continued illegal occupation of Iraq, and if they do not at least hold hearings on whether President Bush and Vice President Cheney have engaged in serious unlawful conduct and abuses of power. This is a pivotal, incredibly dangerous time facing our nation. It's also a time in our nation that provides us the opportunity to affirm our patriotic and moral values, and every one of us say, this is the line in the sand, and we will not appease. We will not go beyond that line in the sand. We will insist on compliance with our Constitution, compliance with our long-term treaty obligations, compliance with the basic human rights principles that forbid the kidnapping, disappearance, and torture of other human beings. So let us raise our voices in calling for principled leadership, and let us exercise our political muscle in saying we expect more, much more, from the party that historically has taken the higher moral and political ground, but which has abrogated its responsibility, even when in the majority of Congress, to pursue public policy based on fundamental decency and an unwavering commitment to peace, to the rule of law, and to our Constitution. So with that, let's toast to the American way, to real moral and religious values, and a major change in our nation. And it's going to take us at the grassroots pushing for it, because the leaders, by and large, are not the folks sitting in Congress today, and certainly not in the White House. Thank you very much.
A toast, but I don't know if I can follow that, but we'll try. I just wanted to raise a glass to Mayor Anderson as his term comes to a close. Just a glass to him for being brave enough to not buy in to the political bullshit and not be bought out by big corporations, and to actually speak his mind and help put Salt Lake City on the map, letting the country know that we are not all incredible right-wing conservatives here. We are progressives. We have some of us, at least a good chunk of us here, who are sick of what's going on, and we want to see some change. So, to Mayor Anderson for all he's done for Salt Lake City.
That was very good.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if yours was better or not. We'll open it up to some Q&A, and maybe I'll go first because I'm a little curious. What are your plans? At the end of your term, we're all kind of curious what you're going to do.
Well, you know me, I'm just going to go work on my golf handicap for a while. No, what I really hope to do over the long term is create and grow a major nonprofit organization that will have groups like this networking in local communities all around the country, and getting us all on the same page so that we can push persistently for our elected officials to respond to some of the major human rights and climate change issues facing our nation and our world, because it's that kind of embracing of our democracy, of pushing our elected officials, that's about the only time we see the kinds of responses that we need if we're going to see solutions to these problems. And we've got this amazing gift, this incredible tool, democracy. And with the freedom to come together, freedom to speak about these issues, freedom to organize, we've got to take advantage of it. And right now there isn't that organizing mechanism in this country. It certainly isn't in an opposition political party. So that's what I intend to devote the rest of my life to. And I hope you'll all join me. Representative Seeley.
Here's my follow-up, Rocky.
God, I hate being high maintenance.
So here's my follow-up question, Mr. Anderson, Mayor Anderson. Will your institution be located here in Salt Lake City? Okay, that's the first. And the second part of that is that when you focus on organizing our community, will your intent be on a federal, state, local, or grassroots organizing effort, or on all those levels?
Thank you. I intend to do this, replicate this hundreds of times around the country, and we'll all be addressing the same issues. It will be laser-like focus on certain issues so that we are all pushing together. Every time a congressperson comes home to town, every time a senator comes home from to town, they will hear the same message nationwide. They're going to hear, we want action. We want effective action in ending the now more than 4-year-old genocide in Darfur. That is our moral obligation. As a nation, we have the capacity to do that. We'll all speak with one voice. Okay, thank you. Ellen.
So my question is, will humankind, we know it's going to be green and go after the CO2 issue, and we know it's going to go after human rights. Are you going to also go after universal health care?
Universal health care, I'm sure, will be on the radar at some point in time. We're going to try to limit, and I know there will be a lot of arguments about what we choose to address, but we're going to try to limit it to 3, no more than 4 issues at any one time, so we're all pushing and making sure that we're effective. Rather, sometimes, and I love the work they do, but do you all get the Amnesty International newsletter? My God, I mean, by the time you get through it, there are 40 different issues, and it's so dispersed, but they do a different kind of thing than what I'm talking about. So as we're organizing folks around the country, we want them on the same page and working very effectively, but I think universal health care certainly will be one of those issues at some point. Yeah. I think initially, right now, the other important point about this organization is that it's not just built around one issue, and it will be sustained over time. So we'll have this organizing mechanism in place. When the Rwandan genocide began, President Clinton's national security advisor responded when he was approached and asked to intervene. He said, American people have got to make more noise. Our telephones aren't ringing. Well, their telephones didn't ring, we didn't make more noise, and in 100 days, 800,000 people were butchered. 5,000 troops intervening would have put an end to that genocide, and it's because we weren't organized. So an organization like this will be in place. We would be able to respond to an emergency situation like that and push for action by our federal government.
Anybody going to ask about Romney?
Which presidential candidate do you support?
Thank you. I support Bill Richardson. Bill Richardson is by far the most experienced candidate. He was Secretary of the Department of Energy under President Clinton, was U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. He had great diplomatic successes. He believes in the United Nations, believes in international diplomacy. He served in Congress, and now he's governor of New Mexico. He's been one of the great leaders nationally in the area of climate change, and he has the most aggressive plan for energy independence, and it's going to take somebody being very aggressive to do the kinds of things that are going to be required for us to meet that challenge. He's a good man too. I know him personally, very down to earth. He's somebody that I would urge all of you to take a very serious look at. I had a piece published in The Nation 2 weeks ago. If you get a copy of it, or if you'd like a copy from me, I'd be happy to print a copy off for you. And it was about why I support Bill Richardson. I think any good liberal in this country needs to get behind the only among the 4 leading candidates who has pledged within a year of being elected to get every single one of our troops out of Iraq. I'm sure somebody has a question about Mitt Romney, don't they?
This is very serious. It sounds not serious, but it is. Should we fear the Mormon prophecy that in the end times a Mormon will lead America?
I don't think so, because I don't believe in prophecy like that, but sorry. I don't believe that every word in the Bible is true either. Wouldn't that have been nice if one of those Republicans said, no, actually, a lot of that is it's storytelling. These people got together and a lot of people wrote the Bible and they tried to get points across. There's some nice points to be made, but this religious craziness in this country has got to end, and we've got to stand up against it. And that's not religious intolerance. That's just saying, you know, there are a lot of people with different views. Mitt Romney gets up and talks about religious tolerance, and then what does he do? He constricts it all and says only those who believe in a certain way. And this was he doesn't want a religious test applied to him when he's running for president. But what does he say 2 weeks ago? He wouldn't put a Muslim on his cabinet because of that person's religion. That is an utter outrage in this nation.
Mr. Mayor, I think you should run for president. Well, any good word about our dependence on fossil fuel? 95% of it is fossil fuel. I think we are dying because of that.
Yeah, the question is about our dependence on fossil fuel. If we don't break our dependence and do it very quickly, first of all, we're going to run out of at least gas and oil. We're past the peak, and the demand is getting greater and the supply is much less. So even if it weren't for climate change and local air quality problems that are killing more than 1 million people in this world, we would be in deep, deep trouble without the foresight of finding energy independence. But coal, we have enough coal to last probably 250 years, and if we keep burning coal, if we keep building coal-burning power plants, we are going to hit 450 parts per million concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and worse, and at 450 parts per million, climate change will be irreversible and cataclysmic. This planet will be in many respects uninhabitable, and it is our responsibility. We can't put this off to another generation. We can't even put it off to another decade. These solutions have to be put in place in the next 4, 5, 6 years, less than a decade, or we are handing our children and later generations an utter catastrophe. There is no question about that anymore. Okay, thanks all very much. Go back to drinking liberally. And you're not just progressives, you're damn liberals. I appreciate it.